Imagine being stuck in traffic for hours, and just as you spot an empty parking space, someone else drives in and takes it. You may feel anger, frustration, maybe even rage. These emotions arise from a deep part of the brain called the limbic system, which triggers emotions. How you react, whether you lose your nerve or stay calm, depends on higher cortical brain regions that regulate emotions. When this regulation fails, we call it emotion dysregulation, a core symptom in emotion dysregulation disorders, including bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and ADHD. I'm Luigi Saccaro. My project identifies early risk markers for these disorders to guide preventive interventions in individuals at risk. These disorders are common, have a genetic component, and have a huge impact on individuals and society. If we can identify individuals at risk before symptoms escalate, we could slow down or even prevent these psychiatric disorders. The good news, early interventions exist. But the bad news is that we are lacking reliable and measurable indicators, markers that help us assess risk and track whether interventions are actually working. Risk isn't black and white. It's a mix of genes and environment. Stress and chronic inflammation can interfere with brain development, impairing emotional regulation and increasing the risk of psychiatric disorders. This creates a vicious cycle. We can break it by finding risk markers that take into account these different aspects: emotion dysregulation, stress, inflammation, and brain activity. That is, multimodal markers. Also, risk isn't tied to just one disorder. A child of an ADHD patient is at risk not only for ADHD, but also for bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. That's why we cannot focus on one single disorder, as researchers have done in the past, but we need markers that apply across multiple disorders, which we call transdiagnostic markers. My project therefore identifies, for the first time, multimodal and transdiagnostic markers of emotion dysregulation disorders in over 200 participants. These participants are healthy individuals, patients with emotion dysregulation disorders, and unaffected offspring of patients who are at genetic risk. By analyzing the 4 pillars of the vicious cycle that I mentioned before, emotion dysregulation, stress, inflammation, and brain activity, I found specific patterns of variables that are highest in patients, lowest in healthy individuals, and somewhere in between in at-risk offspring. These patterns may therefore be early risk markers for emotion dysregulation disorders. Identifying them could help design targeted early interventions to reduce risk and prevent severe psychiatric disorders in young people. In short, we are not just studying emotion dysregulation. We are working on a way to break its vicious cycle before full-blown disorders develop.